Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real today. Attraction is not about doing more, talking more, or proving more. That's where most people get it wrong. The moment you start over explaining, over giving, and over showing, you lose leverage. What makes someone irresistible is not desperation, it's discipline, not neediness, but knowing your worth and standing in it, even when it feels uncomfortable. Let me break this down in a way that's honest and real, because this first rule is where everything begins. Stop chasing. That sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest things to do when emotions get involved. When you're constantly reaching out, constantly checking in, constantly trying to hold things together, what you're really doing is telling him that you're more invested than he is. And the moment that balance shifts, attraction starts to fade. Here's the truth most people don't want to hear. When you chase someone, you remove the mystery. You remove the challenge. You remove the opportunity for them to miss you. If you're always there, always available, always ready to respond, his mind never gets the space to wonder where you are, what you're doing, or what life feels like without you. And wondering is powerful. Wondering is what creates desire. A man doesn't fall deeper because you keep proving your love. He falls deeper when he feels like he could lose something valuable. Your absence does more work than your explanations ever will. Silence, when used with confidence, forces reflection. It makes him replay conversations. It makes him notice patterns. It makes him realize the energy you brought into his life. When you remove that energy, even slightly, it creates a shift. Now understand this clearly. Stopping the chase does not mean playing games. It doesn't mean being cold or disrespectful. It means choosing dignity over desperation. It means deciding that you will no longer overextend yourself just to keep someone comfortable. When you pull back, you're not punishing him, you're protecting yourself. Most people think if they stop chasing, they'll lose him. But the opposite usually happens. When you stop chasing, you change the dynamic. You stop being the one trying to convince. You stop being the one carrying the emotional weight. And suddenly, he has room to step into his role. Men are wired to pursue, to fix, to earn. When you take that away by doing all the work, you rob him of purpose in the connection. Your absence speaks louder than 1,000 messages. It says, I have a life. I have value. I am not afraid to stand alone if I'm not being met halfway. That energy is powerful. It doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It attracts. And when he senses that you're no longer chasing his attention naturally shifts back to you. Here's the key part. When you stop chasing, you must stay strong in the silence. Don't pull back and then panic. Don't disappear and then rush back with explanations. Let the space breathe. Let it work. Trust that what's meant to rise will rise without you forcing it. The right energy responds to confidence, not pressure. This rule is not about losing love. It's about creating respect. And respect is the foundation of attraction. When you stop chasing, you're not walking away from him. You're walking toward yourself. And that shift changes everything. Let's talk about self-respect, because this rule quietly controls everything. If you don't respect yourself, nothing you do will ever be enough to make someone else respect you. You can be kind, loyal, patient, supportive, and still be overlooked if you allow your boundaries to be crossed. Self-respect is not loud. It doesn't argue. It doesn't beg. It shows up in what you tolerate and what you walk away from. The way you treat yourself sets the standard for how others treat you. If you accept inconsistency, confusion, and excuses, you teach him that your needs are optional. If you respond to mixed signals with understanding instead of clarity, you tell him that he doesn't have to be clear with you. People rise or fall to the level you allow. That's not cruelty, that's reality. Self-respect means you don't negotiate your worth. You don't shrink your expectations to keep someone comfortable. You don't stay silent about things that hurt you just to avoid conflict. When something feels wrong, you acknowledge it. When something doesn't align, you step back. Not with drama, not with threats, but with calm certainty. Here's where most people struggle. They think setting boundaries will push him away. But boundaries don't push away the right person, they reveal the wrong one. A man who values you will not be threatened by your standards. He will rise to meet them. A man who benefits from your lack of boundaries will resist them, and that resistance tells you everything you need to know. Self-respect also means valuing your time. You don't wait around endlessly. You don't pause your life hoping someone will decide what they want. You keep moving. You keep growing. You keep choosing yourself even when it feels uncomfortable. When your time is value to you, it becomes valuable to others. Another part of self-respect is emotional honesty with yourself. If something makes you feel anxious, small, or unsure, you don't ignore that feeling. You listen to it. You don't explain it away. You don't convince yourself to accept less than you deserve. Your emotions are information, not weakness. When you stand in self-respect, your energy changes. You stop trying to prove yourself. You stop chasing validation. You stop asking for reassurance, and something powerful happens. He feels it. Not because you announced it, because your behavior reflects it. You become grounded. You become steady. You become someone whose presence feels solid. Self-respect also teaches patience. You stop rushing connections. You allow people to show you who they are over time. You don't rush intimacy to secure attention. You let consistency speak. You understand that real interest doesn't need pressure to exist. When you respect yourself, you become selective, not desperate. You don't fear losing someone who isn't choosing you fully. You fear losing yourself, trying to keep someone who won't meet you halfway. That shift alone makes you irresistible, because when someone realizes they can't access you without respect, effort, and clarity, they either step up or step away. And either way, you win. Emotional calm is a rare kind of power, and it's the kind that changes everything in a connection. Most people believe attraction comes from intensity, passion, from dramatic conversations and emotional reactions. But the truth is, emotional stability creates far more pull than emotional chaos ever could. When you remain calm, especially in moments of uncertainty, you immediately stand out. When something shifts in his behavior, the natural impulse is to react, to question, to push for answers. Express fear before understanding what's really happening. But reacting too quickly gives your power away. It shows that his actions control your emotional state. Calmness, on the other hand, shows self-trust. It communicates that you are grounded enough to observe before you respond. Staying emotionally calm doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It means you don't let them run the show. You don't send messages fueled by anxiety. You don't make decisions in moments of emotional overload. You give yourself space to process, to breathe, to think clearly. That pause changes the entire dynamic. Unpredictability doesn't come from playing games. It comes from not being reactive. When someone can't predict your emotional response, they pay closer attention. If every action they take gets an immediate emotional reaction from you, they stop valuing the impact of their behavior. When your response is measured, thoughtful, and calm, it creates awareness. Awareness leads to effort. There is strength in composure. When you don't raise your voice, don't over-explain, don't defend yourself endlessly, you communicate confidence. Calm people don't chase clarity, they wait for it. They don't demand reassurance, they observe consistency. That steadiness makes others feel the weight of their actions. Emotional calm also protects you. It keeps you from saying things you'll later regret. It keeps you from giving someone emotional access when they haven't earned it. It allows you to see situations as they are, not as your fear imagines them to be. With clarity, you make better choices. When you remain calm during silence, distance, or uncertainty, it sends a powerful message. It says you trust yourself enough to handle discomfort. It says you don't panic at the first sign of change. That level of self-control is deeply attractive because it reflects maturity and inner security. Another important part of emotional calm is not trying to control outcomes. You stop trying to force conversations. You stop trying to manage his feelings. You allow things to unfold naturally. This creates space for him to step forward on his own. People reveal their true intentions when they're not being pushed. Your calm energy shifts the balance. Instead of him feeling overwhelmed or pressured, he feels drawn in. He becomes more curious. He becomes more aware of your presence and your absence. Calmness creates depth. It creates safety. And paradoxically, it creates desire. When you master emotional calm, you stop reacting to every wave. You become the anchor. And the person who can remain steady while everything else is uncertain holds the most power in the connection. Letting someone earn access to your time and energy is not about being distant or difficult. It's about understanding value. Your time is your life. Every minute you give to someone is a minute you'll never get back. When you give it away freely to someone who hasn't shown consistency, effort, intention, you unintentionally tell them it has little worth. People protect what they value, and they value what they have to earn. Most people give too much too soon. They offer emotional support, constant availability, deep conversations, and endless patience before the other person has shown they can handle it responsibly. When everything is handed over without effort, it removes motivation. There's no reason to step up when everything is already provided. Earning access doesn't mean withholding affection out of fear. It means allowing connection to grow in proportion to effort. When he shows up, you respond. When he invests, you reciprocate. When he makes time, you make space. But you don't overextend to compensate for his lack of action. Balance creates respect. Your energy is powerful. The way you listen, care, support, and show up emotionally can become addictive if given without limits. When someone knows they can reach you anytime, unload anytime, and receive comfort without accountability, they stop respecting the source of that comfort. When access to your emotional world requires consistency and care, it changes how you're treated. There's also confidence in not always being available. It shows that you have a life, priorities, and commitments beyond one person. That independence is attractive. It signals that being part of your world is a privilege, not a guarantee. When you don't drop everything to accommodate inconsistency, you reinforce your worth without saying a word. Letting him earn access also protects you from burnout. Constant giving without receiving drains your emotional reserves. You become tired, resentful, and confused. When access is earned, energy flows both ways. Effort is matched. Appreciation grows naturally. This approach also reveals character. Someone who genuinely cares will rise to meet you. They'll make plans, communicate clearly, and show effort without being asked. Someone who only wants convenience will fade when they realize access isn't automatic. Either outcome works in your favor because clarity replaces confusion. You don't need to announce boundaries loudly. Boundaries are shown through action. You respond thoughtfully instead of instantly. You prioritize your responsibilities. You don't chase explanations. Over time, behavior teaches more than words ever could. When someone realizes they can't reach you without intention, they become more intentional. When they realize your energy isn't unlimited, they handle it with more care. That's how respect is built. Not through demands, through standards lived consistently. Your time and energy are sacred. When you protect them, you don't lose people who are meant to stay. You only lose those who were never willing to earn their place. Silence is one of the most misunderstood tools in human connection. People think silence means weakness, fear, or giving up, but in reality, silence used with confidence is one of the strongest signals you can send. When you stop explaining yourself, stop chasing clarity, and stop filling every gap with words, you force the other person to think. And thinking is where realization begins. Most people talk too much when they feel uncertainty. They text to feel close. They call to reduce anxiety. They explain to feel understood. But the truth is, constant communication often blocks awareness. When everything is said, there's nothing left to process. Silence creates space, and space creates curiosity. When you go quiet, not out of anger, but out of self-control, his mind starts working. He notices the change. He wonders why you're not reaching out. He replays past conversations. He questions his actions. Silence shifts attention inward. Instead of you chasing answers, he